Imagine a place, a beach, the ski slopes, the softball field, a bakery. Close your eyes and be there. Think about how you experience this place. What are you seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling? You gather information about your surroundings through your senses. Your nervous system collects information, your brain decides how to respond, and your body follows those instructions. The same is true of all organisms. All gather information and respond to their environment, though the structures that perform these functions are very different from phylum to phylum. Let's take a look at how animals respond to their environment. Get your paper ready, wide right, skinny left. See you on the next slide. Animals must often respond to events or environmental conditions within seconds, or even split seconds. Whether it's to catch food or escape predators, most animals have specialized nervous systems that enable them to respond to events around them. The information or event that causes an organism to react is a stimulus. The plural is stimuli. Neurons are nerve cells that are specialized for certain jobs. Let's take a look at them. Sensory neurons respond to a particular stimuli, such as light, heat, chemicals, gravity, to name a few. Humans and animals share many types of sensory cells. Many animals react to the same stimuli humans notice, like light, taste, and pressure. But many animals have sensory cells that humans lack. This is why some animals respond to stimuli that humans cannot detect, like weak electrical currents or the Earth's magnetic field. When sensory neurons detect a stimulus, they pass that information along to a second type of nerve cell called an interneuron. Interneurons process the information and determine how an animal responds to the stimuli. The number of neurons an animal has and the way those interneurons process the information determine how flexible and complex the animal's behavior can be. Jellyfish and earthworms have a few interneurons, and so they're capable of only simple responses, such as going towards or away from light. But vertebrates have a more highly developed nervous system with large numbers of interneurons, many in the brain. This is why we see more complex behaviors in vertebrates than in most invertebrates. A specific reaction to a stimulus is called a response. When an animal responds to a stimulus, body systems, including nervous and muscular, work together to generate a response. Many responses are carried out by cells or tissues. But if a response involves movement at all, nerve cells called motor neurons carry directions from the interneurons to the muscle cells. This can be as dramatic as a lion chasing its prey, or as subtle as the shiver you get when you detect a cool breeze. Nervous systems vary greatly in organization and complexity across the animal kingdom. We see increasing degrees of cephalization and specialization as we move from simple organisms to more complex. If we start by looking at some of the simple invertebrates, cnidarian, such as the jellyfish and the hydra, have simple nervous systems called nerve nets. It's just like it sounds, a system of neurons connected in a net-like fashion with very little specialization. Remember from the first semester that cell specialization is cells developing in various ways to perform different jobs. In some organisms, like echinoderms or sea stars, neurons form a nerve cord around the organism's mouth or in the flatworm along the length of the animal's body. In still other invertebrates, we see interneurons grouped together in structures called ganglia, like you see here in this arthropod. As animals become more complex, cephalization begins to evolve. This is the concentration of sensory and interneurons in a head region. Some animals also have interneural ganglia forming in other places in their body along with the head region. Think about why that's a good adaptation. Interneurons carry messages, so it allows for even more complex movements in other parts of the body. In some invertebrate species, like the octopus, cerebral ganglia become even more organized into a structure we call a brain. These organs enable complex behavior, including several types of learning. Vertebrate animals show a high degree of cephalization and have highly developed nervous systems. Interneurons in the brain are connected to each other as well as connected to sensory and motor neurons in the head and all over the body. The human brain alone contains more than 100 billion, with a B, nerve cells, each of which sends signals to as many as 1,000 other nerve cells and receives signals from as many as 10,000 more. That's amazing. So let's take a look at this amazing organ, the brain. There are three main regions of the vertebrate brain. The cerebrum is the thinking region of the brain. It receives and interprets sensory information, and it decides what to do. It's also involved in learning, memory, and conscious thought in some animals. The cerebellum coordinates movement and balance, while the medulla oblongata controls the functioning of internal organs and involuntary muscles. Optic and olfactory lobes in the brain are involved in vision and the sense of smell, respectively. In vertebrates, the brain is connected to the rest of the body by a thick collection of nerves called the spinal cord, which runs through and is protected by the vertebral column. Brain evolution in vertebrates follows a general trend from small to large and less complex to more complex as you move from fish through amphibians, reptiles, to birds, and then finally to mammals, as you see here in this diagram taken from your textbook. You can see how the thinking or cerebrum part of the brain grows as we move towards mammals. As a general rule, the more complex an animal's nervous system is, the more developed its sensory system tends to be. Invertebrates have sense organs that detect many stimuli such as light, sound, vibrations, movement, body orientation, and chemicals in the water. They vary widely, but they do follow the trend of simple to complex. For example, a very simple organism like the flatworm has eye spots to detect changes in the amount of light, and it can detect changes in the chemical makeup of the water, but it doesn't have a lot else. Scallops and other bivalves have simple eyes, as you see in the little blue dots here. While these don't form images like our eyes do, they do detect movement well enough to allow the scallop to escape danger. Insects and other arthropods like the crayfish that we dissected have compound eyes. These detect tiny changes in movement and color, but less detailed images than human eyes do. Think about how hard it is to catch a fly and how much they see a tiny, tiny little change in movement. That would be important if you were a fly. Squid and octopi have complex eyes, and so do all vertebrate animals. Although they vary in structure, they do all work pretty much the same way, and they do focus images and allow the organisms to see images. So we see things going from simple with eye spots to a complex eye. Vertebrates, as we've said, have highly evolved sensory systems. Most vertebrates have very sensitive organs of taste, smell, hearing, eyesight, and touch. Though no one organism has all senses, highly evolved and sensitive. Organisms have senses adapted to their environment. Some sharks can smell a drop of blood in 100 liters of water. Bats and dolphins can find objects in their environment using echolocation. Many species of animals have color vision as good or better than humans. And some fish and the platypus can detect electrical currents in the water. Birds can detect Earth's magnetic field directly, and they use that ability to navigate during migrations. The sheer variety of sensory evolution is nothing short of amazing. And as you research your animal, those are the things that you should be looking for. And so, to recap this section on response to the environment, here are some questions to think about and make sure you can answer. What are the three body systems that work together to create a response to a stimulus? Can you compare and contrast interneurons with motor neurons and sensory neurons? Tell me how they're alike. Tell me how they're different. And what trends do we see in the evolution of the nervous system in non-vertebrates and in vertebrates? And don't just tell me simple to complex. That's a basic answer. Tell me more. See you in class. Don't forget to bring your notes.